Ronald was a successful man, owner of a thriving company that had earned him a considerable fortune. At 60 years old, he lived in an imposing mansion on the outskirts of the city with his wife, Margaret. The couple lived comfortably, enjoying the luxuries that money could buy. Ronald was a pragmatic and objective man, used to solving problems efficiently in his professional life. Margaret, on the other hand, had a more sensitive and compassionate heart. The mansion was a true work of architectural art, with its well-maintained gardens, infinity pool, and interiors decorated with refinement. The couple lived peacefully in that retreat, away from the city's hustle and bustle. One autumn night, when they were returning from a dinner with friends, Ronald and Margaret had a frightening experience. When they arrived home, they noticed that the front door was ajar. Ronald's heart raced, and a shiver ran down his spine. Something was wrong. "Stay in the car, dear. I'll check what happened," said Ronald to his anxious wife. "No, Ronald, it's dangerous. Let's call the police," begged Margaret. But Ronald, confident in his ability to handle the situation, ignored his wife's appeals. He grabbed a hammer from the garage and, with cautious steps, entered the house. The silence was oppressive as he searched the rooms, all his senses on high alert. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from upstairs. His heart raced even more as he climbed the stairs. Upon reaching the hallway, he saw a shadow moving swiftly. Before he could react, he felt a strong push that knocked him down. Ronald fell awkwardly, hitting his head on the floor. Dazed, he saw the intruder's figure running down the stairs and disappearing through the front door. He could only make out that it was a tall and strong man. Margaret rushed into the house upon hearing the noise, finding her husband lying on the floor with a cut on his forehead. "Ronald, are you all right?" she asked anxiously as she helped him up. "I am just a bit dizzy," he replied, holding his aching head with his hand. A quick inventory revealed that some of Margaret's jewellery had been stolen, but what upset Ronald the most was seeing a family photo frame fallen on the floor with the glass shattered. It was a cherished photo, taken in happier times. Seeing that precious memory damaged left him deeply irritated. "Damned thief!" Ronald exclaimed as he carefully collected the shards of glass. His fingers trembled with anger as he tried to piece them together, as if he could restore not only the photo frame, but also the sense of security that had been shattered along with it. The next day, still shaken by the incident, Ronald made a drastic decision. He hired a security company to reinforce the property's protection. In a few days, the mansion was transformed into a true high-tech fortress. Fences with motion sensors were installed around the walls, surveillance cameras covered every inch of the grounds, and a sophisticated facial recognition system was implemented at the main gate. "Now, Mr. Ronald, let's register a security password to open the gate," the technician explained. "It needs to be an 8-digit password, but avoid birthdays or obvious information. Choose something you won't forget." Ronald reflected for a moment, his gaze lost on the horizon, as if seeking inspiration from his memories. Then, with determination, he typed a sequence of numbers into the panel. Margaret watched all the security apparatus with growing discomfort. "Dear, don't you think we're overdoing it? So many cameras, fences, it seems like we're locking ourselves in a prison," she commented hesitantly. Ronald sighed, understanding his wife's concern. "I know it's a bit excessive, dear, but with the company's expansion, we're more exposed. It's better to be safe," he justified, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying images of the backyard. "But what if she comes back?" Margaret asked, her voice choked with emotion. Ronald turned to his wife, his own eyes brimming with tears. Without saying anything, he just hugged her tightly, both sharing a silent pain that went far beyond the recent robbery. In the days that followed, life at the mansion returned to an apparent normality. Ronald developed the habit of checking the cameras on his phone before arriving home, making sure everything was in order. The feeling of security gradually returned, although a subtle tension still hung in the air. In a particularly restless early morning, Ronald couldn't sleep. He decided to go down to his office, pouring himself a glass of wine while absent-mindedly watching the security monitors. It was then that something unusual caught his attention. There was a figure lying under the old tree in the backyard. Ronald rubbed his eyes, incredulous. How could someone have gotten through all that security set up? Annoyed, he immediately called the security company, as there was a number for emergencies. How is it possible? I spent a fortune on this system, and someone simply gets in and lies down in my backyard, he ranted to the attendant. Mr. Ronald, I apologize, but our system did not record any invasion, the employee replied, confused. In fact, there is a record of access through the pedestrian gate at 11 at night, using the registered password. Did you share this password with anyone? Ronald was speechless for a moment, a sudden realization hitting him. No, I think I was mistaken. Thank you, he said, abruptly ending the call. With his heart pounding, Ronald went out to the backyard. He cautiously approached the tree, where an old swing still hung from a sturdy branch. As he lightly touched the shoulder of the sleeping person, she turned, awakening somewhat confused, but as soon as their eyes met. Hi, Dad. I hope I didn't wake you, said a young woman, her eyes meeting Ronald's. Elisa? My girl, Ronald whispered, the emotion making his voice almost inaudible. I knew it could only be you. No one else would know that password. I would never forget, Dad, Elisa replied with a sad smile. When I saw a password was needed, I knew you would choose that date. Ronald's mind was flooded with memories. Elisa, his only daughter, had insisted on having a pet rabbit when she was a child. Reluctant at first, Ronald eventually gave in, fearing the disappointment that would come when the short-lived animal inevitably passed away. And so it happened. 2 years later, on an autumn morning, the little rabbit was found lifeless. Devastated, Elisa cried for days. Ronald, wanting to comfort his daughter, organized a small funeral for the animal, burying it beneath the same tree where Elisa now slept. From then on, father and daughter held a simple annual ceremony on that date, no longer for the rabbit itself but as a ritual that celebrated the special bond between them. The date of the little rabbit's death, that was the password chosen by Ronald. As Elisa grew older, a shadow settled over her life. The young woman developed severe depression, a condition that Ronald, with his pragmatic mindset, found difficult to understand. Arguments became frequent, with Ronald accusing his daughter of being ungrateful. You have everything money can buy. How can you be dissatisfied with life? He would often shout, frustrated and confused. Margaret tried to mediate, explaining the nature of depression, but Ronald, in his ignorance, only distanced himself further, labeling Elisa as ungrateful. The father's lack of understanding pushed Elisa down a dangerous path, the path of drugs, which seemed to offer a temporary escape from her internal pain. Years passed without Ronald hearing from his daughter. And now, as if by a miracle, there she was, sleeping under the old tree of their happy memories. Father, I need help, Elisa murmured, her voice laden with vulnerability. Is there still room for me in this family? Ronald felt his heart break. Years of regret and late understanding hit him like a wave. Oh, my daughter, he said, his voice choked with emotion. How foolish I was back then. After I lost you, I finally understood better what you were going through. Please forgive me. In this family and in my heart, you never lost your place, my dear. He enveloped Elisa in a tight embrace, tears flowing freely down his face. The warmth of his daughter's body, it was as if a long-lost piece of himself had finally returned. Elisa, Ronald said after a moment, a slight smile forming on his lips. There are only 2 days left until our ceremony, in honor of your poor little bunny. Elisa laughed softly, a sound Ronald realized he had missed greatly. Yes, Dad. This year, I'll make a really beautiful flower arrangement, she replied with a playful smile. In those early hours, father and daughter stayed in the backyard, as if time had turned back. Ronald pushed the swing where Elisa was sitting, both of them laughing and chatting as in the old days. From the bedroom window, Margaret watched the scene, her heart overflowing with gratitude and relief. In the days that followed, the mansion came back to life. Elisa's presence brought back a long-forgotten joy. Ronald and Margaret dedicated themselves fully to helping their daughter in her recovery, seeking out the best treatments and, most importantly, offering the emotional support she so desperately needed. The day of the bunny ceremony arrived, but this time it was different. Apart from the flowers that Elisa had lovingly prepared, the family decided to plant a new tree next to the old one. To symbolize a new beginning, Ronald explained, his eyes shining with emotion. While planting the small sapling together, Ronald reflected on how something as simple as the password to a gate could carry so much meaning. That date, which represented loss and connection, now symbolized redemption and a new beginning as well. At night, sitting on the porch and gazing at the stars, Ronald held the hands of Margaret and Elisa. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I spent so much time trying to protect our home from external invaders that I forgot to protect what really mattered, our family." Elisa smiled, squeezing her father's hand. "Sometimes, Dad, the greatest threats are not those we can keep out with walls and cameras. They are the ones that grow inside us when we forget to communicate and understand each other." Margaret nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. "The important thing is that we're together now, and this time we won't let anything separate us." Ronald looked at his family gathered together and felt a peace that no security system could provide. The mansion, once a cold fortress, was becoming a warm home again. And the gate code, that seemingly random sequence of numbers, would remain a silent reminder of the power of love, understanding, and forgiveness. That night, as the family retired to sleep, Ronald did a final check of the house. But this time, he didn't look at the cameras or sensors. Instead, he stopped at Elisa's bedroom door, listening to her gentle breathing. With a smile on his lips, he whispered a good night and went to his own room, grateful for the second chance life had given him. The Reed mansion, once a symbol of material wealth, had now become a true treasure, not because of the possessions it held, but because of the renewed love that filled every one of its rooms. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.